Arrested at Horse Guards. Horse Guards, Royal Guard, King's Guard, Horse, London, 2024. Among them was Alex, a young traveler who had flown in from abroad to see London for the first time. He had always been fascinated by the history and culture of the city, the red buses, the black cabs, the cobbled streets, and most importantly, the famous Royal Guards and their majestic horses. Today, he was finally going to visit Horse Guards Parade, a place he had seen in countless photos and videos but had never experienced in person. As Alex approached the square, the grandeur of the place immediately struck him. Horse Guards Parade was larger and more impressive than he had imagined. The wide open space stretched out before him, surrounded by historic buildings that seemed to whisper stories of centuries past. Every corner was alive with history, yet at the same time, it felt vibrant and modern. Tourists from all over the world wandered around, many taking photographs, others simply staring in awe at the carefully maintained grounds and the perfect formations of the guards. Alex could see the famous Royal Guards standing tall in their red tunics and black bearskin hats. They looked almost like statues, motionless and disciplined, their eyes forward, showing no emotion as tourists walked by. Their horses were equally majestic, strong, calm, and perfectly groomed. The animals stood patiently, occasionally twitching their ears or shifting a hoof, but always maintaining a sense of dignity. Alex had seen pictures of them, but seeing them up close was a completely different experience. There was a sense of reverence in the air, a silent understanding that these guards and horses were part of a living tradition that had been maintained for centuries. With his camera ready, Alex slowly made his way closer to the parade ground. He wanted to capture every detail: the shiny boots of the guards, the polished saddles, the proud stance of the horses, and the expressions of the tourists around him. Every click of his camera brought a new perspective. He noticed the careful way the guards held their reins, how the sunlight reflected off the metal parts of their uniforms, and the disciplined way the horses responded to even the slightest signal from their riders. It was clear that this was not just a display for tourists. It was a serious, highly trained operation that required skill, focus, and respect. Alex moved cautiously, making sure not to get too close to the guards. However, his excitement sometimes made him forget the unspoken rules. He leaned a little too far forward for a photo, trying to get the perfect angle. A few other tourists were doing the same, crowding around the guards, whispering and laughing softly. The atmosphere was a mix of curiosity, admiration, and a touch of nervousness. Alex felt a thrill being so close to history, imagining the countless ceremonies and events that had taken place in this very spot over the centuries. He wondered how many kings, queens, and important figures had stood here, witnessing the same scene, though in different times and under different circumstances. While Alex was engrossed in his photography, he also began to notice small details that most tourists might overlook. The horses, for example, were not just beautiful, they were intelligent and well-trained. Alex watched one horse turn its head slightly as a pigeon landed nearby, remaining calm and unbothered. The guards' boots were perfectly polished, reflecting the morning sunlight. Their hats were so tall and stiff that they seemed almost unreal, like something out of a storybook. Even the way they held their posture, shoulders back, chins up, conveyed a sense of discipline and pride that was fascinating to witness. Alex felt a mix of awe and nervous excitement. He had read about the strict rules at Horse Guards Parade, about how the guards were not to be disturbed, and how the horses were to be respected at all times. Yet, being here in person, the rules felt even more important. He could feel the eyes of the guards, even though they never moved or spoke, as if they could sense the intentions of every tourist around them. It made him a little anxious, but in a good way. He wanted to do everything right, to be respectful, while still capturing the experience for himself, and for the people back home who would be eager to see the photographs. As he continued exploring, Alex noticed a small group of tourists trying to mimic the guards' poses for pictures. Some were crouching, some were standing stiffly, and others were even pretending to ride the horses while keeping a safe distance. The guards, as usual, did not react. Alex smiled at the scene, amused by the creativity and enthusiasm of his fellow tourists. Yet, he reminded himself to stay cautious. He had learned that even a small mistake, like stepping too close or touching the horse, could lead to a serious warning. The excitement of being so close to the royal guards and their horses was almost overwhelming. Alex's heart raced as he imagined what it must be like to serve as a guard here, to ride a magnificent horse every day, to stand tall in ceremonial uniforms, and to be part of a tradition that stretched back hundreds of years. He wondered what training was required, how the guards learned to remain motionless for hours, and how they developed such a deep connection with their horses. Every detail seemed extraordinary, from the crisp sound of a hoof striking the ground to the subtle movements of the guards as they adjusted their reins or shifted slightly to maintain balance. The sounds of the square added to the atmosphere. There was the murmur of tourists speaking in various languages, the occasional laughter of children, the soft clip-clop of horses' hooves, and the distant sounds of the city beyond the parade ground. Alex felt a strange mix of calm and excitement, a sense of being part of something larger than himself, yet also fully in the moment, absorbing every sight, sound, and sensation. The sun shone warmly on his face, and he felt a sense of gratitude for being able to witness such a remarkable scene firsthand. As he continued to take photographs, Alex noticed a small ceremony beginning in the distance. A guard moved gracefully on horseback, signaling the start of a routine inspection. The horses responded instantly, moving with precision and coordination. Alex's eyes widened with admiration. The skill required to execute such movements flawlessly was extraordinary. He realized that this was not just a performance for tourists, it was a carefully practiced display of discipline, respect, and tradition. The more Alex watched, the more he felt a deep respect for both the guards and the horses. He thought about the responsibility they carried, not only to maintain security, but also to represent centuries of history and tradition. Each horse, each uniform, each movement was part of a story that had been passed down through generations. Alex felt a sense of connection to this living history, as if he were standing in a bridge between the past and the present. Even as he tried to focus on taking photographs, Alex's curiosity kept pulling him closer to the action. He wanted to see every detail up close, to understand the bond between guard and horse, to feel the energy of the parade ground. Yet, he also reminded himself of the rules he had read about. The guards were not there for entertainment. They were there to maintain a tradition, and the horses deserved the highest respect. Alex took a deep breath, adjusted his camera, and reminded himself to observe carefully, to move slowly, and to remain polite and respectful at all times. By mid-morning, Alex had walked around most of the parade ground, capturing countless photographs and observing countless details. He had started conversations with a few other tourists, sharing stories and impressions. Everyone seemed amazed by the precision, beauty, and discipline of the royal guards and their horses. Alex felt a sense of camaraderie with these strangers, united by the shared experience of witnessing something so remarkable. The sun continued to shine and the square buzzed with energy, yet there was an underlying calm, a sense that everything was in its proper place, moving according to a long-established rhythm. As the morning wore on, Alex felt a mix of excitement, awe, and nervous anticipation. He was eager to get closer for a better view and more photographs, but he also wanted to be careful not to break any rules. He felt that he was standing at the edge of something special, a moment where history and the present intersected. Every step, every click of the camera, and every glance at the guards and horses felt like part of a story that he was lucky to witness firsthand. Little did Alex know that this curiosity and excitement would soon lead to an unexpected twist in his day, an event that would become the most unforgettable part of his visit to London. But for now, he continued to explore, fascinated by every detail, and filled with a sense of wonder and respect for the history, discipline, and beauty of Horse Guards Parade. As Alex continued to wander around Horse Guards Parade, his excitement grew with every step. The morning sunlight sparkled off the polished boots of the guards and the metal parts of the horses' saddles, making the whole scene almost magical. He could hardly believe he was really here, standing among centuries of history. Every detail fascinated him. The way the horses flicked their tails gently, the way their ears twitched at the slightest sound, and the calm, disciplined way the guards moved, even while standing perfectly still. Alex's camera clicked constantly as he tried to capture the perfect angle. He leaned slightly to the side to frame the majestic horses against the backdrop of the historic buildings. Other tourists were doing the same, snapping selfies and group photos, their laughter mixing with the occasional sound of a hoof striking the ground. Everything seemed perfect, until Alex's curiosity got the better of him. He noticed a group of guards preparing for a short ceremonial movement with their horses. Their horses moved in perfect synchronization, responding to subtle signals from their riders. Alex was captivated. He wanted a closer view to see the intricate details up close. The way the reins moved, the careful posture of the guards, the gleam in the horses' eyes. Without thinking much about it, he took a few careful steps closer, edging past the invisible line that separated the tourists from the ceremonial area. At first, nothing happened. The guards remained statuesque, their eyes forward, their expressions unreadable beneath the tall bearskin hats. Alex felt a thrill at being so close. He crouched slightly for a better angle, focusing his camera on a particularly impressive horse. He didn't touch it, of course. He respected the animal, but he leaned in a little more than he probably should have. It was at that moment that one of the guards, standing just a few feet away, gave a sharp, measured step forward. Alex heard a quiet but firm voice behind him. "Step back, please." Startled, he turned to see a young officer standing nearby. His uniform was immaculate and his expression was serious but calm. Alex immediately felt a flush of embarrassment. He had wanted only to observe and take photos, but now he realized he had unknowingly crossed a boundary. He nodded quickly, muttering an apology. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to get too close." The officer's eyes didn't soften. He repeated more firmly this time, "Please step back. You are too close to the horses." Alex obeyed immediately, retreating a few steps, but he couldn't help feeling a mix of confusion and nervous excitement. He had read that the royal guards were strict about rules, but he hadn't expected such a direct confrontation. Around him, other tourists continued snapping photos, but Alex felt the weight of the moment more acutely. It was as if the seriousness of the guards had suddenly entered his own personal space. Trying to calm his racing heart, Alex took a deep breath and moved to the side, observing the ceremony from a safer distance. He watched as the guards led their horses through a series of precise movements. Each horse responded instantly to the slightest cue, lifting its hooves in perfect timing and moving with a grace that seemed almost choreographed. Alex could see the discipline and training that went into every step. The guards' hands were steady, their posture unwavering, and the horses' coats gleamed in the sunlight. He tried to focus on the beauty of the scene, but a lingering feeling of tension remained. As Alex continued observing, he noticed other tourists whispering among themselves. Some pointed subtly in his direction, though he couldn't be sure if they were talking about him or something else. He felt a mixture of self-consciousness and curiosity. He wanted to understand what had just happened and why the guards were so strict, yet he couldn't take his eyes off the remarkable sight before him. Minutes passed, and Alex gradually regained his composure. He began taking photographs again, this time making extra sure to keep a respectful distance. However, his curiosity was still strong. He had always been drawn to observing details up close, and he couldn't resist the urge to move a little closer to one of the horses that had particularly caught his attention. Its eyes were dark and intelligent, and Alex was fascinated by how calm and composed it remained despite the crowd and activity around it. Just as he leaned forward slightly to frame the perfect shot, the officer he had spoken to earlier returned. This time his expression was even more serious. "Sir," he said, his voice calm but firm, "you must step back immediately. This is a restricted area. You are too close to the horses." Alex froze for a moment. He understood that he had made a mistake, but he felt frustrated with himself for not realizing the boundary earlier. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I just wanted a closer look." The officer nodded slightly but did not smile. Intentions do not change the rules. "You must follow instructions immediately." Alex stepped back, his heart racing. Around him, the other tourists seemed to sense the seriousness of the moment. Conversations died down, and even the children nearby seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere. Alex felt a mixture of embarrassment, nervousness, and awe. He had wanted to get closer to history, and now he was confronted with the reality that history demanded respect in very strict ways. As he observed the scene from a safer distance, Alex couldn't help but reflect on the discipline required to be a royal guard. Standing perfectly still for hours, maintaining control of a powerful horse, and following centuries-old protocol was no small task. He realized that the guard's seriousness was not meant to intimidate tourists. It was meant to preserve centuries of tradition and ensure safety for everyone, including the animals. The thought gave him a renewed sense of respect for both the guards and the horses. However, Alex's curiosity was not so easily satisfied. He wanted to understand the relationship between the guards and their horses. He noticed subtle interactions, the way a guard adjusted the reins, how a horse responded to a gentle tap, and the small movements that kept the formation perfect. Each detail was fascinating, and he wished he could see it up close without breaking the rules. As the ceremonial movements continued, Alex tried to find another angle for his photographs, careful not to cross any lines this time. He crouched slightly, adjusted the zoom on his camera, and tried to capture the precision of the formation. Yet despite his efforts, he couldn't shake a growing sense of nervous excitement. He was aware of the invisible boundaries around him, aware of the strictness of the guards, and aware that any small mistake could escalate quickly. Suddenly, a small commotion began nearby. Another tourist, unaware of the rules, had stepped too close to a horse and was being gently but firmly instructed to move back. Alex watched closely, realizing that the situation could have been much worse if the rules were ignored. The guards did not shout or react aggressively. They were calm, disciplined, and professional, but their presence was commanding. Alex felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Relief that he hadn't caused a bigger problem, and anxiety that he was still very close to crossing a boundary himself. For the next several minutes, Alex carefully observed, photographing from a safe distance while mentally reviewing the rules he had read online. He realized that respect for the guards and the horses was not just about avoiding trouble. It was about understanding the responsibility and history behind their roles. Every movement, every stance, every silent moment was part of a larger story, one that had been preserved for generations. As the morning progressed, Alex noticed the guards preparing for a brief inspection of the horses. They signaled to their mounts, and the horses responded instantly. The precision of the movements left Alex in awe. He wished he could get a closer look, but he reminded himself to stay back. He wanted to honor the discipline and training he was witnessing, not disrupt it. Despite his caution, Alex's curiosity continued to pull him forward. He moved slightly closer, thinking he could capture a better angle without causing any disturbance. At that exact moment, one of the senior guards noticed his movement. A stern, authoritative voice broke through the air. "Sir, you must move back immediately." Alex froze. His heart raced. This was not a gentle reminder, it was a clear warning. He stepped back instantly, his hands slightly shaking. Around him, other tourists watched silently, sensing the seriousness of the interaction. Alex realized that his excitement had almost gotten him into real trouble. He apologized once more, feeling both embarrassed and humbled. As he stepped away and adjusted his camera, Alex took a deep breath. He realized that the moment had taught him a valuable lesson. Curiosity and excitement were wonderful, but respect and caution were just as important. The royal guards and their horses were not just for show. They were living symbols of history, discipline, and responsibility. Alex felt a deep respect for the people who maintained this tradition, and a renewed awareness of the delicate balance between fascination and protocol. Little did he know that this brief warning would soon escalate into a far more serious situation. His curiosity, combined with the excitement of being so close to history, was about to lead him into an experience he would never forget. Alex thought he had learned his lesson after the earlier warning. He stepped back, adjusted his camera, and tried to keep a safe distance from the royal guards and their horses. His heart was still racing from the earlier encounter, but he told himself he would be extra careful. The parade ground was full of tourists, all chatting quietly and snapping photographs, and everything seemed calm once again. Yet, Alex's curiosity and excitement were difficult to contain. He had come so far to see the royal guards up close, and the desire to observe the horses and the guards in detail kept tugging at him. As he wandered slowly along the edge of the ceremonial area, Alex noticed a particular horse that seemed especially magnificent. Its coat was dark and shiny, and it stood with an almost regal posture. The guard riding the horse appeared calm, but Alex was fascinated by the subtle way the reins were handled, the way the horse's muscles shifted with each small movement, and the quiet communication between horse and rider. He wanted to capture this perfect moment, to freeze it forever in a photograph. Without fully thinking about it, Alex leaned a little closer, crouching slightly to get the right angle. The morning sunlight reflected beautifully off the horse's mane, and he could see the animal's dark, intelligent eyes. Alex adjusted his camera, holding his breath as he framed the perfect shot. He didn't touch the horse, he didn't interfere, but he forgot one crucial thing. Even leaning in too close could be considered a breach of protocol. A few seconds later, he felt a firm hand on his shoulder. Alex jumped, startled, and turned around to see a young officer looking at him with a serious expression. "Sir," the officer said calmly but firmly, "you are too close to the horses. Step back immediately." Alex nodded quickly, trying to calm his racing heart. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to." The officer's eyes did not soften. "Intentions do not matter. You are in a restricted area. Please follow instructions immediately." Alex stepped back, his hands slightly trembling. Around him, other tourists had begun to notice the interaction. Some whispered quietly, while others quietly took a few steps away to give space. The atmosphere had changed. What had been a calm, almost magical scene moments ago now felt tense. Alex's stomach tightened as he realized the seriousness of the situation. He had only wanted to get a closer look, but now he understood that the rules were strict for a reason. Before Alex could even think further, another officer appeared, motioning to him to follow. "Sir, you need to come with us," the officer said, his tone calm but firm. Alex froze. The words "come with us" sent a jolt through him. He had expected perhaps another warning, but not this. He felt a mix of fear, confusion, and embarrassment. "Wait, what?" Alex stammered. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just leaned a little closer for a photo." The officer remained calm. You were warned earlier and you have crossed the boundary again. Please cooperate. Alex felt his heart pounding. He realized that his excitement and curiosity had led him into a situation far more serious than he had anticipated. A few tourists had stopped to watch, their eyes wide with surprise and concern. Alex could feel their curiosity and judgment, adding to his anxiety. He followed the officers, trying to keep calm, though his mind raced with questions. The officers led him to a small holding area nearby. It was a quiet, enclosed space, far away from the main parade ground. Inside, Alex was asked to wait while the officers checked his details. He sat down, his hands clasped tightly, and tried to calm himself. The room was simple, with a few chairs and a desk, but it felt intimidating. Alex felt like a student being called to the principal's office, except this was far more serious. As he waited, Alex's mind replayed the morning in fast motion. He remembered leaning too close for photos, the first warning, and the way the officer had spoken to him. He realized that his excitement and curiosity, though innocent, had been interpreted as a breach of protocol. He felt embarrassed and a little frightened, but he also understood that the officers were doing their job. They had a responsibility to maintain security and ensure the safety of the horses and the guards. After a few minutes, one of the senior officers entered the room. He was taller and older, with a serious expression that made Alex feel even more nervous. "Sir," he said, "you were warned earlier, and yet you approached the horses again. This is a restricted area. Do you understand the seriousness of your actions?" "Yes," Alex replied quickly, his voice shaking slightly. "I understand. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I was just trying to take photographs." The officer nodded slightly. "Intentions are noted, but rules must be followed. You were informed, and yet you chose to disregard instructions. This could have resulted in serious consequences." Alex swallowed hard. He felt a wave of shame. He had never been in trouble like this before. He had traveled to London to enjoy the sights, learn about history, and witness the royal guards, but now he found himself in a situation that was both unexpected and frightening. He realized that even innocent curiosity could have consequences if it was not tempered with respect and caution. The senior officer asked Alex a series of questions: where he was from, what he was doing, and why he had approached the horses again despite the warning. Alex answered politely and honestly, explaining that he had not intended any harm and that he was simply fascinated by the guards and their horses. The officer listened carefully, occasionally nodding, but his expression remained serious. After the questioning, the officer spoke again. "We understand that you had no harmful intentions. However, proximity to the horses and ignoring instructions is considered a security risk. Therefore, you will be released with a formal warning. Do you understand?" "Yes, I understand," Alex replied, relief flooding his body. He felt the tension in his chest begin to ease, though he still felt embarrassed by the situation. He realized that he had learned a valuable lesson about rules, respect, and responsibility. The officers escorted Alex back to the main parade ground. The royal guards and their horses were still standing proudly, as if nothing had happened. The tourists around him had resumed their activities, though a few glanced curiously at him as he walked by. Alex felt a mix of relief and awe. The incident had been frightening, but it had also made him appreciate the discipline, training, and responsibility required to serve as a royal guard. As he returned to a safe distance, Alex took a moment to observe the guards and horses again. He noticed details he had missed earlier: the way a guard adjusted the saddle, the gentle way a horse responded to a subtle signal, and the quiet but powerful presence of both guard and animal. He realized that the discipline and professionalism he had witnessed were not just for show. They were a vital part of maintaining history, safety, and respect for tradition. Despite the embarrassment and nervousness he had felt, Alex also experienced a sense of admiration. He thought about the countless hours of training the guards had undergone, the careful attention to the welfare of the horses, and the pride required to maintain such a high level of discipline. The incident had been a wake-up call, but it had also deepened his appreciation for the beauty and complexity of the Royal Guards and their role in London's history. By the time Alex returned to his camera and resumed photographing from a safe distance, he felt calmer and more aware. He understood that his curiosity was valuable, but it had to be balanced with respect and caution. Every movement, every step, and every decision mattered when dealing with history, tradition, and living symbols like the Royal Guards and their horses. As the morning turned to midday, Alex reflected on the experience. The arrest had been brief and nonviolent, but it had left a lasting impression. He realized that the rules were there not to punish tourists, but to protect everyone involved, the visitors, the guards, and especially the horses. He felt grateful for the officers' professionalism and for the opportunity to learn such an important lesson in real life. Alex knew that this story would stay with him forever. It was a story of curiosity, caution, and respect, a moment when excitement nearly led to trouble, but awareness and cooperation prevented it from becoming serious. He had come to London to witness history, and in doing so, he had experienced a lesson that was both memorable and deeply human. After being escorted back to a safe distance from the Royal Guards and their horses, Alex felt a mixture of relief, embarrassment, and curiosity. The experience of being briefly detained had left him both shaken and thoughtful. He realized that the guards' strictness was not meant to intimidate tourists, but to ensure the safety of the horses, the ceremony, and everyone present. The morning sun shone brightly, casting long shadows on the parade ground, but Alex's mind was busy replaying every moment that had led up to his sudden encounter with the officers. As he walked slowly along the edge of the square, Alex tried to process what had happened. He thought about how quickly things had escalated from a simple curiosity about the horses to being asked to follow officers to a holding area. He understood that his actions, though innocent, had crossed a line. The reality of rules and protocol at such a historic site had become clear in a way that no guidebook or online article could ever convey. Alex felt a deep sense of humility. He had come to London expecting excitement and awe, but he had not anticipated a lesson in responsibility delivered in such a direct and real way. Sitting on a nearby bench, Alex took a moment to observe the Royal Guards once more. They stood tall and motionless, their expressions hidden behind the tall bearskin hats. Their horses remained calm, moving only slightly as if acknowledging the presence of the crowd. Alex felt a renewed sense of admiration for their discipline. Each movement, or lack of movement, was deliberate and practiced, reflecting years of training and a commitment to tradition. He realized that being a Royal Guard was not just about appearance. It required focus, patience, and a deep understanding of both the horses and ceremonial protocol. As he reflected, one of the officers approached him again. This time, his tone was calm but firm, signaling that the situation was no longer about punishment, but about understanding and education. "Sir," the officer said, "we appreciate that you did not intend any harm. However, it is important to understand why the rules exist. The horses are highly trained animals and can be unpredictable if disturbed. The guards are following strict protocol, and their safety as well as yours depends on it." Alex nodded, listening intently. "I understand," he said. "I didn't realize how serious it was. I just wanted to see the horses up close and take photos." The officer continued, explaining that even small actions, like leaning too close or sudden movements, could startle a horse. "It is not about punishing curiosity," he said. "It is about ensuring respect and safety for both the animals and the guards. We want visitors to enjoy the experience, but within clear boundaries. That is why rules are enforced consistently. Alex absorbed the explanation, realizing how easy it could have been for an accident to happen. He thought back to the moment he had leaned too close for the perfect photograph. A wave of gratitude washed over him. He had been warned before anything serious occurred. The officers had handled the situation professionally, ensuring he understood the rules without causing fear or panic. Alex felt a growing respect for their calm approach and the way they maintained order without disrupting the experience for other tourists. The officer paused for a moment and then added, "You will be released now with a formal warning. We hope that you will share your experience with others and help them understand the importance of following the rules here. This is not just a matter of authority, it is about preserving history and ensuring the safety of everyone involved." "Yes, absolutely," Alex replied. "I will be very careful from now on. Thank you for explaining everything so clearly." With that, the officer gestured for Alex to leave the holding area. As he walked back toward the main part of the parade ground, Alex felt a mix of relief and excitement. The experience had been intense, but it had also been educational. He realized that being a tourist was not just about capturing photographs or witnessing famous sights. It was also about observing, respecting, and learning from the culture, history, and rules of the place he was visiting. Once back among the crowds of tourists, Alex noticed that the atmosphere of Horse Guards Parade had not changed. People continued to admire the guards and horses, taking photos and enjoying the scene. Yet Alex now saw everything with a new perspective. He noticed how carefully visitors maintained their distance, how quietly the crowd moved, and how each person seemed to subconsciously respect the invisible boundaries that had caused him trouble earlier. Alex found a quiet corner of the parade ground and sat on a low wall to reflect further. He thought about the discipline required of the Royal Guards, the long hours of standing motionless, the precise coordination with their horses, and the dedication to a centuries-old tradition. He felt that he had been given a rare glimpse into this world, not just as a tourist, but as someone who had nearly crossed a line and then learned firsthand why the rules mattered. As he reviewed the photos on his camera, Alex realized that the images he had captured earlier were still impressive, even without leaning too close. The lesson he had learned allowed him to see the beauty of the scene more clearly. It wasn't just about the perfect angle or the closest shot. It was about understanding and respecting the story behind the royal guards and their horses. Every photograph became more meaningful because he now appreciated the discipline, history, and responsibility that went into every movement and every stance. Feeling calmer and more reflective, Alex began walking slowly around the parade ground again. This time, he kept a careful distance from the guards and their horses, observing them with appreciation rather than desire for proximity. He noticed the subtle ways in which the guards interacted with their horses, the quiet strength in their posture, and the serene composure of the animals. Each detail fascinated him, but now he felt a sense of respect that went beyond mere curiosity. Around him, other tourists continued to move about, some chatting quietly, some taking photos, and some simply watching the scene unfold. Alex realized that he was no longer just an observer trying to get closer. He had become a part of the experience in a different way. He understood the delicate balance between excitement and respect, and how small actions could have big consequences in a place with such history and tradition. After spending some time in quiet observation, Alex decided to step away from the immediate vicinity of the guards and find a nearby cafe. He wanted to reflect on everything that had happened and gather his thoughts. Sitting down with a cup of tea, he thought about how the morning had begun with excitement and wonder, escalated into tension and fear, and then resolved with understanding and respect. He realized that the experience had taught him more about responsibility, discipline, and cultural awareness than any guidebook or online article could have. As he sipped his tea, Alex began writing notes in his travel journal. He described the beauty of the royal guards and their horses, the thrill of being so close to history, and the lesson he had learned about following rules and respecting boundaries. He wrote about the professionalism of the officers, the discipline of the guards, and the intelligence and calmness of the horses. By putting his thoughts into words, Alex felt that he was processing the experience more deeply, turning what had been a stressful moment into a valuable life lesson. Reflecting further, Alex realized that the arrest had been a pivotal moment in his visit to London. It had transformed his perspective from that of a curious tourist seeking photographs to someone who truly appreciated the discipline, tradition, and responsibility involved in the Royal Guard's work. He felt grateful for the opportunity to witness such a historic and culturally significant ceremony, while also learning an important lesson about respect and boundaries. By the time he finished his tea, Alex felt a sense of calm and clarity. He returned to Horse Guards Parade with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to observe, photograph, and enjoy the experience without crossing any lines. Every movement, every glance, and every photograph now carried a deeper meaning. He understood that true appreciation of history required patience, observation, and respect, not just proximity or perfect shots. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Alex took one last walk around the parade ground. He admired the royal guards and their horses from a safe distance, noticing details he had missed before: the gleam of a horse's bridle, the subtle hand signals of a guard, the rhythm of movement that spoke of years of practice and dedication. Each moment became more vivid because he now understood the story behind the scene, the discipline required, and the respect deserved. Alex left Horse Guards Parade that day feeling enriched, humbled, and inspired. The experience had been more than just a sightseeing adventure. It had been a lesson in responsibility, cultural awareness, and respect. He knew that he would remember this day for the rest of his life, not just for the beauty of the royal guards and their horses, but for the personal growth and understanding that had come from a brief but unforgettable encounter. As the afternoon sun continued to shine over Horse Guards Parade, Alex walked slowly along the edges of the square. The morning had been a whirlwind of excitement, curiosity, and tension, and now, in the quiet hours following the incident, he felt a sense of calm reflection. Sitting on a low stone wall, he watched the royal guards and their horses as they moved with precision and grace. The scene was still breathtaking, yet now it carried a deeper meaning for him. It was no longer just a picturesque tourist attraction. It was a symbol of discipline, history, and responsibility. Alex thought back to the moment when he had been asked to step back, and then to the brief detention by the officers. At first, the memory had been frightening, but now he could see it as a crucial turning point. He had come to London seeking excitement and adventure, eager to take photographs and experience the famous royal guards up close. Instead, he had been given a lesson in respect, patience, and awareness. He realized that these lessons, though unexpected, were far more valuable than any photograph could ever be. As he observed the guards, Alex began to notice details that had escaped him earlier. The horses' ears flicked attentively in response to the slightest sound, yet they remained calm and composed. The guards' movements were subtle but deliberate. The way they adjusted their posture, shifted their weight, or signaled to their horses with a gentle tug of the reins. Every action was part of a carefully choreographed routine, one that required years of training and dedication. Alex marveled at the harmony between human and animal, understanding now that it was built on trust, patience, and respect. Around him, tourists continued to wander the parade ground, some snapping photos and others simply taking in the atmosphere. Alex noticed that most visitors kept a careful distance, as if subconsciously aware of the invisible boundaries he had crossed earlier. He felt a small sense of pride that he now fully understood and respected these limits. Being close to the action was exciting, but he realized that true appreciation came from observation with respect, rather than proximity alone. Alex's thoughts wandered to the officers who had escorted him earlier. He felt a deep gratitude for their professionalism and patience. They had not been angry or harsh. Instead, they had explained the rules and ensured that he understood why they mattered. That calm, measured approach had transformed what could have been a frightening experience into an opportunity for learning. He reflected on how often rules in life exist not to restrict people, but to protect them and others. He made a mental note to carry that lesson with him beyond this trip, wherever he went. Walking slowly along the perimeter, Alex found himself reflecting on the concept of discipline more broadly. The royal guards and their horses represented centuries of tradition and dedication. Their work required consistency, patience, and an understanding of the responsibility they bore each day. Alex realized that discipline was not about rigidity or punishment. It was about commitment and respect for oneself, for others, and for the responsibilities entrusted to you. Seeing it in action so vividly left a lasting impression on him. He noticed a group of children watching the guards with wide eyes. Their fascination reminded Alex of himself earlier in the morning, eager and curious. He smiled, imagining how different the scene must have looked through their eyes. He realized that every visitor brought their own perspective to the parade ground, yet all were connected by a shared sense of wonder. Some came for photographs, some for history, and some simply to witness something extraordinary. For Alex, the experience had evolved from curiosity to a profound appreciation for tradition, discipline, and respect. As he continued to explore the area, Alex found a quiet spot overlooking the parade ground. He took out his camera again, but this time he approached photography differently. He focused not on getting closer or capturing the perfect angle, but on observing and appreciating the scene. Every photograph he took now carried meaning beyond the image itself. It represented understanding, mindfulness, and respect. The lessons he had learned earlier made him more patient, more careful, and more present in the moment. Alex's mind also wandered to the horses themselves. He had always admired animals, but seeing these horses in such a disciplined and ceremonial setting gave him a new perspective. They were not merely beautiful creatures. They were intelligent, responsive, and deeply attuned to their riders. The bond between horse and guard was evident in every subtle movement. Alex understood now that this relationship was built on trust and mutual respect, much like the relationship between people and the rules they follow. Both required patience, attention, and care. As the afternoon wore on, Alex found a quiet cafe nearby and decided to take a break. Sitting with a warm cup of tea, he reflected on the entire morning and early afternoon. The experience had been more than just a sightseeing adventure. It had been a lesson in humility, awareness, and the value of rules. He thought about how easy it was to let curiosity and excitement cloud judgment, and how important it was to balance enthusiasm with caution. Every step, every movement, and every choice mattered, and he now understood that small decisions could have meaningful consequences. Writing in his travel journal, Alex detailed the events of the day. The anticipation of visiting Horse Guards Parade, the excitement of seeing the guards and horses, the tension of being briefly detained, and the lessons he had learned. He reflected on how the experience had changed his perspective on discipline, respect, and cultural awareness. Writing it down helped him process the day fully, turning what could have been a moment of embarrassment into a valuable life lesson. As he finished his tea, Alex decided to take one last walk around the parade ground before leaving. The guards and horses continued their ceremonial duties, perfectly composed and disciplined. He observed them quietly, now fully appreciating the dedication required to maintain such a standard. The atmosphere was serene yet filled with quiet energy, a testament to the balance between history, tradition, and modern tourism. Alex felt a sense of connection to the centuries of history that had unfolded in this place, and he understood that he had witnessed something rare and meaningful. Walking toward the exit of Horse Guards Parade, Alex took a deep breath. He felt grateful for the day, the sights, the lessons, and the reflections. He had come seeking excitement and photographs, but he was leaving with a richer understanding of respect, discipline, and responsibility. The royal guards and their horses had offered him a glimpse into a world that was much larger than himself, and the brief tension he had experienced had only deepened his appreciation for it. As he made his way through the busy streets of London, Alex found himself thinking about how this experience would stay with him for the rest of his life. He knew he would tell the story many times, about the beauty of the royal guards, the intelligence of the horses, the brief moment of tension, and the lessons in respect and awareness. He also knew that he would never forget the calm professionalism of the officers, who had turned what could have been a frightening experience into a learning opportunity. Reflecting further, Alex realized that the day had taught him a valuable lesson beyond Horse Guards Parade. He understood now that rules, discipline, and respect were not obstacles to enjoyment. They were guides that allowed people to experience life fully and safely. He thought about other places he had visited and other experiences he might encounter in the future, and recognized that this lesson would apply everywhere. Patience, awareness, and respect were universally important, whether in a historic square in London or in everyday life back home. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the city, Alex paused on a bridge overlooking the Thames. He looked out at the sparkling water and reflected on the day's events. What had begun as a simple visit to a famous tourist attraction had transformed into a journey of understanding, reflection, and personal growth. He felt grateful, inspired, and quietly proud of himself for learning from the experience rather than simply regretting it. Before leaving London for the evening, Alex took out his camera one last time. He captured the skyline, the river, and the distant lights of the city, but his thoughts were filled with the images and lessons of Horse Guards Parade. Each photograph now carried meaning beyond its visual appeal. It represented a story, a lesson, and a moment of growth. Alex understood that the true value of travel was not just in the sights seen, but in the experiences lived and the lessons learned. As he walked back to his hotel, Alex smiled to himself. The royal guards and their horses had given him more than just a memorable visit. They had given him a lasting story, one of curiosity, respect, and personal growth. He knew that this story would stay with him forever, shaping the way he approached new experiences, new places, and new opportunities. And in that moment, Alex felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that the lessons of Horse Guards Parade would remain with him for a lifetime.